what I've been through, what I've gone through, how I've overcome that stuff. Um, so I'll get just more into who I am so you guys have more of an idea other than education and background, that kind of thing. So growing up, I was raised by a single mom for most of my very young childhood. My grandmother helped her a lot, so I stayed with her a lot as well. My family, my mother especially, she was into the arts, fine arts, music, dancing, acting. She was in a lot of plays. She was in the newspaper. She did amazing things. And so she always wanted best for me. She always wanted to give me more, to allow me to prosper, to allow me to grow, to allow me to thrive. And she's passed, so I do get a little emotional talking about her. But, with that, I think came a lot of the time that I spent with my grandma. And so I went to uh, a very nice school. There weren't any black people. There were zero, I mean, there were some Hispanics, some Mexican, but a lot of Asian, white, predominantly white school. So I went to school with lawyers' children's, acupuncturist children. I went to school with all of the doctors' kids. My mom would take me places and people would say that I looked like I was a a daughter of a lawyer, excuse me, because she dressed me so well. She always had me looking really cute. Um, Always trying to do the best, do the most. And so over the years, I ended up moving back with her in what we called the hood. And as a matter of fact, I've spoken to a lot of my friends from there over the years, and we've talked about having a party with who is left. And sorry, we've lost a lot of people. We've lost to drugs, to alcohol, um, to a lot of mistakes that they have made. I would say there's probably 5 of us left, if that. So it wouldn't be a very big party, but it would definitely be fun and we'd have good company. So, over the years, I decided a long time ago that I wasn't going to fail. I wasn't going to be who everybody said I would be, because of where I came from, because of what I had or what I didn't have. I decided who I'm going to be. And I fought for that for a long time. I went to school, dropped out. I dropped out in 9th grade, came to Albuquerque shortly after becoming a mother at 17 years old. Moved out here with my daughter, her dad, and we lived out here. I decided to go pursue my GED because I dropped out of high school. So I got my GED. I tried to go to college. I failed horribly. It was very hard to have a job, a toddler, and a full 12-hour schedule in college. I was barely making ends meet. So that didn't quite work out, and I thought, school's not for me. I'm just going to find something else to do. So I started working in the healthcare field, giving home health care to the the disabled populations, elderly populations. And I did good. I kept that for about 4 years, and I really enjoyed it. It was something that, I could do and not have a demanding schedule. It was also something I could do with ease without having an education, without furthering my education. So I pursued that for a while. It was still really hard because I was a young mom and I did have my child's father, but he was very abusive. So it made things even more difficult to achieve because I was constantly feeling low. I felt like I was nothing. I felt like I couldn't do it. I felt like, everything is against me. What is for me? So I decided to leave and move on. I moved on. I got into other trouble. My daughter stayed with her dad, and I left them because that was the only way that I could get her, myself, and him out of that abusive home, was to leave by myself. The police would not let me take her. So I started working in call centers. I started doing whatever I could to make ends meet. I got a nice car. I got all this stuff. I was doing so well, and someone asked me, "Hey, you want to go with me to Mexico? I have some friends, and we can make some money." And I thought, "Okay, what are we doing?" They said, "We're moving. We're moving them from their house in Mexico to here in Albuquerque." And I was like, "Oh, that's fine. We can do that. No problem." We didn't have to lift furniture. They would load it up. They would do everything. And we would just drive it out here. And turns out that it was actually loaded with drugs. And I didn't get caught. A friend of mine did. And she set me up. So she was asking me questions. She was telling them that I was her boss, that I hired her to do this, that she was bringing the drugs to me. And it was all because she was afraid of the actual people who she was doing it for. I wasn't actually there when she got caught, but I still got in trouble. So there were many charges that were placed against me: aiding and abetting, trafficking, 350 kilos. There were a lot of charges that they had me on. And because I wasn't there, I was very doubtful that they could even hold that against me, because all they had was a couple recordings that she would call me on and say, "Hey, do you know where to get any pills?" I'd be like, "Sure, I've got a friend. I can get you whatever you want. I can do anything." So I would fall for it. I fell for it every time. She recorded me. She turned it to the police, and then she said, "Hey, they're going to give me back the vehicle that they took. You want to come with me to come and get it?" And stupid me, I was like, "Sure, let's go. I didn't do anything wrong." So I go with her. I get questioned for hours. All this stuff happens. They tell me that everybody left me there. I was in another town because it was actually in Las Cruces where this happened. And um, I fell for it again, and I walked right into their trap. They had me there. They cornered me. They questioned me. They threw numbers at me: years, 25 years in prison or more. All of these things that I was very afraid of. I felt that my life was over. I had just gotten a good job at Lockheed Martin in human services, or human resources, excuse me, and um, that had a very high clearance. So they said if anything happened, even a speeding ticket, I had to tell them, or I would get 5 years in prison for lying. So with that being said, I didn't tell them. I kept it quiet. I thought, okay, this is over. It's just questioning. I said, "You have to let me leave. I want to leave right now." And I left. So it was quiet. It was chill. Nothing happened. A few months. That was in September. In January, I was on my way to work at Lockheed Martin, 6 a.m. in the morning. Walking outside to my car, I get surrounded by 7 cars, unmarked vehicles. I was zip tied, and I was taken to jail in Las Cruces. I stayed there for 4 days. I prayed for a lawyer. And it was a specific lawyer, actually, because I felt that, I was just hearing stuff in jail, and I felt he was the best one. So I prayed for this lawyer, and lo and behold, I get called out, go into the little cage room where you talk to your lawyer, and he said his name, and it was him. And I could not believe it. I was so just amazed that that prayer was answered, and I got him. He didn't do the best job, but he kept me out of jail. He kept me out of prison. And he got me a plea to actually get a much lesser charge. It was still a felony, but it worked for me. So I had this guy during pretrial. So as you can imagine, my sentencing was extremely scary because I thought I would never see my kid. I thought he might be 25 when I see him or be able to hug him or any of that. So I persevered. I pulled it out of somewhere, I don't know. And I said, this isn't the end. I lost my job. I lost my identity. Everything that I was gone. And I worked so hard to get there. Sometimes I still don't know how I did it or how I'm still doing it. But I didn't give up. And I decided all those years ago that I'm not going to let anybody say what I'm going to be. Because regardless, I wasn't there. I didn't do that. I did it, but not that time. So when I actually did it, I never got caught. She did that to me. And when I was on pretrial, when I was on probation, I would cry all the time. I would freak out, I would go to my meetings and people would look at me like, what the hell is she doing here? Look at her. Miss Pretty, Miss Perfect. She doesn't belong here. And I didn't belong there. I didn't feel that I belonged there. And it was obvious. They did that just to get a notch in their belt. But I did not let it take me over. I did not let it put me in a bad place. I did not let it ruin me completely. I have children. I have people that rely on me. So I would cry to my probation officer. I would cry to everybody, and I'd be like, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life. It's ruined. What am I going to do? I should just kill myself, All these things would go through my head, and I would just want to give up so bad. But something was there that still I believed since a young age, and I just didn't give up. I just did not give up on me. So I started doing research. I found ways to make money, ways to get ahead. What kind of career can I do with a background? How am I going to get through this, right? Because I get through everything. So how am I going to get through this one? So I decided to go to college. I went back to school. I talked to advisors. I talked to people in my programs that I was in, the counseling sessions that I'd go to, that I was forced to go to for like 5 years. And I made the most out of it. I went to counseling. I talked to my counselors about the things, not about the drug things. I was never addicted to drugs. They put me in that. They wasted their money thinking that they were going to counsel me for drugs. I didn't have a drug addiction. But I did have a lot of other issues from my mom, from my dad, from my upbringing, from the things that I had gone through. So I used it. I used my therapy for what I needed. And I took it, I took advantage of it. I said to myself, this is free therapy. I don't have to pay for this. I did research on how much therapy costs. And lo and behold, I became a therapist. I talked to therapists in my programs. I said, hey, what do you do? Have you ever been in trouble? I started to run the classes. I started to be the one passing out the papers. I started being the one to collect the papers, to tell everyone to shut up and get to work so we wouldn't get in trouble because they're coming right back to check on us, So I started being the facilitator in our groups, in my therapies and everything. And when my therapist would ask me if I felt like I was done, I would say, no, I'm not done. I still need you. I still need you to get through the rest of this. Because of everything that I was doing, going to college, having my child, my PO would come, check my fridge, check my house, check everything, my drawers, everything, to see what I had or what I didn't have. Are you drinking? Are you doing drugs? Are you going to? No. But it was fine. I actually became really good friends with him. Later in life, I got a job at CYFD with my bachelor's degree. I was an investigator for child abuse and neglect. Because I did not have a violent crime on my record, I was able to work with these populations, and that's what I took advantage of. I decided to give back to strengthen myself and continue to build on the skills that I achieved or acquired throughout my life. I've seen a lot of suffering. I've seen a lot of pain. And so I said, let me help these guys. Let me help them like I needed the help when I was that age. I've seen a lot of things even more so when my career began because of the type of work that I've done. I was a director in a nursing home. Um, a lot of things, a lot of internships. I've worked with the homeless. I continue to work with the homeless. I was just a case manager supervisor, and I said, that's too much. I have to chill out because I have my own business as a therapist as well. I do mental health therapy, but I also do a lot of work with the DD waiver. If anybody is familiar, it's the developmentally disabled population. So I have a lot of Down syndrome, autism clients. I have a lot of those types of clients. So I continue to give back and not give up. That's the key. You just don't give up on you. You can give up on anyone that you come across. I've had no's. I've had tons of no's. I've tried to get jobs that I thought, oh, this will be perfect. I can use this. Um, I can do, this will be good for my resume. This will be good for my future, for what they look at when they see me on paper. How do I look? How do I present myself? I learned how to dress. I learned how to do things, mock interviewing. I would just sit there and practice in the mirror. I would ask questions. I would Google, what do I say when they ask me how much money I want? I have no idea what I want. I have no idea what I even can get because I've never been here before. So when I started doing those things, I learned, you don't answer directly. You have to be very sly, I guess. And what I mean by that is my number one question for my interviews when they ask me how much money would you like to get paid? I always say, well, my experience puts me around the mid-range to high level for that position. So what does it pay? And that gives your employer a much different look on you because they think, okay, they're willing to work with me on the numbers. If you say a number that's too high, they'll automatically say, no, that's not the one because they want 50,000 and this pays 20,000 or something like that. So, you have to learn, you have to research, you have to do what you have to do. You have to take the no's and you have to put them on the floor and walk away. You have to keep moving forward. You're not going to get a yes everywhere you go. And at some point, it feels like no's everywhere. No, 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 everywhere you go. But you have to use it as fuel. You have to remember that you're bigger than that. You're more than that. You come from somewhere. Whether it's your God, whether it's your parents, whoever it is, someone, or maybe more than one, people said, you deserve this life. You deserve to be here. And so it's up to you to make the most of it like I have and not give up on yourself because it's easy to give up. It's easy to go and just say, forget it. I'm not doing it today. And believe me, there are still days where I feel that way. There's people I work with who they would be mortified if they found out my past. And I would be mortified if they did also. Maybe some of them. Some of them are very accepting and, it is what it is. But opening up your own business, finding a skill that you're good at, finding your niche, finding those things that fit you perfect, like the best shoe in your closet. That is where your key to moving forward is going to lie. If you were once, that Lockheed Martin job was supposed to be my everything. And as soon as that was gone, I felt so hopeless. But then I found out that I'm not supposed to be that. I'm supposed to be a counselor. I'm supposed to be a therapist. And I'm supposed to work with the less fortunate. I'm supposed to give to the homeless, to the disabled, to those who struggle with their own voice. We're strong people. We've been through a lot because we're strong, and we continue because we're strong. So all you have to do is just remember that and do not give up. So I don't know if it's 30 minutes yet, but we're getting pretty close. So does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, when you in Mexico, I'm surprised you got busted. We're at the border patrol. Is that where you got busted?
I did not get busted.
Okay, your friend got busted.
A friend got busted
Okay.
and said that she was bringing me everything.
Everything on you.
Mm-hmm.
you got investigated, you got to do your analysis, and all that stuff, or not?
Yes, absolutely. My every drug test was clean. I had just been through the whole background check for a 7-stage clearance through Lockheed Martin.
Were you detained?
I went to jail, yes. They arrested me in front of my apartment and zip tied me. I felt like I got kidnapped. Right. I didn't have a shred of anything on me, ever. Nope.
I would have gotten a lawyer right then and there.
Well, I didn't have money. So when you don't come from money, that's a little hard. But I thought about that for sure. I was in jail for 4 days. Not much, yeah. I went to jail for 4 days. It was the only time I've ever been to jail in my life, actually. So it was the worst experience in my measurement of shitty situations. That was it. I was very scared, yes. And I did have girls telling me that I would be there for 3 years before court. I had all these stories. They scare the shit out of you. You have no idea what's going on, and they tell you all these things that I believed it. I was so scared. I was like, my life's over. So, well, I didn't have anything. So I didn't know anything. So, I still got charged with lying, but I didn't know any, and that's why I got charged with that, because I actually knew she was going, but I didn't know the people that she was going for. I didn't even know them when I went. So I couldn't give them that information, and so they charged me with lying about knowing or not reporting that she was going is what I got charged for. Misprision of a felony. Yeah. I don't think the other ones would have stuck. I think that's the problem too. So, yeah. With that charge, I was also looking at 18 months in prison. When I got to my sentencing, the judge threw a book, probably this thick, on the table and said, pick your prison. Pick 3 prisons. I was like, okay, I get to pick? Nice. No, I'm just kidding. I wasn't thrilled at all. But I picked them. I told them what I wanted or which ones I would prefer, the one that Martha Stewart was in or the one that, whoever these fancy people were in. And when I got to sentencing, the judge was a very God-fearing man, and he gave this very beautiful speech about grace. And he told me that he saw a lot of potential in me, and he said that he got a email that morning from someone who had just gotten their degree. And so because of that email, I was given that grace, and I had 3 years or 3 years probation, federal probation afterwards. And I was very grateful. I thought I was going away, and I didn't. And so it was God. It was a miracle. But I did the best I could throughout that time. I got off early. I got off probation a couple months early because I did so well and because I put in so much effort into myself. It wasn't even for anybody else. It was the effort into me to grow and prosper. So the judge told me, anytime you make a big achievement, anytime you do anything big, I want an email. So I've sent him 3. I got my nail tech license in 2011 while I was going to University of Phoenix for my undergrad and my bachelor's degree. I got my bachelor's degree in 2014. I sent him that email, and I got my master's in 2021. So I sent him those emails, and I hope I helped someone. Thank you guys so much for being welcoming. Sorry I'm fanning. I'm super hot, but nice meeting you all.
Thank you. It's amazing what people could accomplish and overcome throughout their lives. So it's very inspiring. Thank you, Miss Denise. Up next, we have another speaker today, Miss Erika Potter. Miss Erika Potter is visiting from the States all the way from London, England. She is originally from Santa Fe, New Mexico. In England, she graduated with a first-class honors degree in financial mathematics and will be returning in September to complete her master's in financial mathematics. Okay. I have to say, though, that is impressive. That is impressive. Considering from the age of 16 to 31, she spent her life addicted to drugs and alcohol, was in and out of jail, and often on and off the streets. She was a victim of sexual and domestic violence. She lost her daughter. She lost trust with family and friends. Today she shares her story of resilience, how she turned her life around and found the confidence to reach for the unknown. It's my pleasure to introduce Miss Erika Potter.
Hi. First, I would just want to say thank you guys for being here. I'm always really honored to be able to come back and give back, and hopefully someone will hear something tonight that sort of inspires them to sort of reach for their dreams. So as Louis said, I was born and raised in Santa Fe, New Mexico. I grew up in a pretty crazy house, so I didn't come from one of those like happy homes. My mom was a heroin addict. My dad was an alcoholic. And I wish, part of me wishes that I could sort of still blame them for how my life turned out, but I can't. You know, I have two brothers and a sister, and none of them chose to go down the road that I did. It was completely my choice. And I think, like, yeah, trauma does exist, but is that an excuse for me to behave the way I did? Probably not, you know, because they didn't. So I do take full responsibility for it, but there was a lot of trauma growing up. My mom got busted when I was 7, and we had to go live with my dad. He had never really been in the picture, and he did the best he could, but he had 4 kids, the youngest with autism. He worked 2 jobs, and I spent most of like my younger years raising my sister and brother, and I'm so grateful for that, because I think without them, I dread to think who I would have become. Being able to help those children grow up gave me a purpose, and they taught me what it meant to love, even though I didn't feel loved. Loving them kind of filled that void. And I mean, honestly, I was a shock to everyone that I kind of went down the road that I did. You know, I was a really quiet kid. I was good. I enjoyed school. All of my friends were drinking and partying by the time they were 11, you know. And I think growing up with my parents the way that they were, I didn't want to. I knew the consequences of that path. But we change, right? Teenage years are hard. Hormones happen. We get angry. We don't know why we're angry, and we do. And I remember I got drunk for the first time, and I did not want to stop. It was the first time that I felt any kind of relief, like all of that stress, all of the fear that I grew up with in my house, because my dad was a pretty angry guy, kind of disappeared. And for a moment, I felt like I was the life of the party, and I could make friends, and I could do things that I wouldn't normally do. And I will tell you one thing, I made up for a lot of lost time. It took me 6 months before I was sort of dropping out of school. I was hanging out with guys twice my age. I turned to hard drugs really, really quickly, and the road got really rough. And I mean, it does for all of us that end up in that path, right? There's some serious consequences, and right away I was going into the D home, and I wasn't allowed in my parents' house unless I was supervised, and I wasn't allowed to be around my sister and brother that I adored, and I don't know why I kept on going. It was just like, once I was in that world, I just didn't know how to get out. And to this day, I don't know what made me stop at 20. At 20, like, I think some things had just happened, and I was tired, and I tried to go to my first rehab, which was up in Embudo. I was the only voluntary patient there. Everyone else there was court ordered. And I remember there was a counselor there that said, one of you is going to make it out of here. And I was determined. I was like, I'm going to be that one, because I'm stubborn. Like, I want to prove people wrong. If you tell me I can't, I will. It's just my personality. I'm genetically defiant. I don't have to be defiant. I just do it very naturally. And so I got out. My mom's English, and my grandparents said, why don't you come and stay with us for a while? And so I went over there, and I was supposed to stay a month. And the one thing I'll say with people that come from sort of difficult backgrounds is that we have the ability to make things happen. We know how to shape the world. We know how to move through difficult times. So it's like when we're given a challenge and we're in a good place, we will conquer it. We can build lives that it takes most people 5 years and 2. We're driven. I'm always amazed with the people that I meet and recover what they've accomplished. So I went over there, and I ended up getting pregnant. I'd been with the guys for 6 months, and he was really excited about it, and so we decided to try and have a family. And I will say that's probably the one time in my life I remember being truly happy. I loved being a mother with all of my heart. I don't know if I was in love with him, but I loved him, if that makes sense. You know, we don't always get to, probably could have been a better partnership, but I was young as well. And when she was 18 months old, I had a drink again. I hadn't had a drink in like about 4 years. And I remember I was cooking dinner and I thought, like, well, I can have a glass of wine. Like, look at everything I've created. Look at how beautiful my life is. And it took me 6 months to burn it down. And I lost my daughter and I lost him. And I will say it was 10 times worse when I went back out than it was when I had been younger. And when my daughter was 3 years old, I decided to come back to the States because I thought if I came home to New Mexico, I could kind of get it together. And we all know, like, people, places, and things, you know, they're not the problem, it's me. And so I came home and I carried on, and my daughter was 3 at that time. And, you know, I've never gotten that daughter back. And that is like one of the hardest things about sort of changing our life and trying to sort of like, I think that's why, like, I chose the topic I did, is because it doesn't always go our way. Just because I finally did get clean and I finally did go down this path, it's not as if it's been easy. I didn't just get the career. I didn't get my daughter back. I haven't had that partner. I bought myself an engagement ring because everyone in my family is getting married and I'm still single. You know, it's like, you know, it's like it hasn't been an easy path, but I will say that it has been a lot easier than anything I dealt with when I was on the streets. And so I came back to the States thinking that this was going to fix my problems, and it didn't. And I spent the next sort of almost 8 years in some really dark times. And I was on the streets in Salt Lake City, weird place. You know, I got busted up there and I'm not allowed in Utah anymore. I mean, I don't know if that's a loss, but you know, and a lot of jumping around. I did like 4 rehabs. And to this day, I don't know why, because the courts had tried to get me sober on a number of occasions, and it never worked. I can jump through the hoops. You put me on probation, ankle bracelet. It's like you tell me how high, I can do it. You know, I can get through it really, really easy, and I'm friends with the guards, and I get through that thing. And as soon as that tag is cut off, I would be back out and running again. And so it was really strange to me. I remember I was sitting in a crack motel, and the thought just came to me. It's like, there's got to be something more than this. You know, I probably weighed 90 pounds. I was just an absolute mess. And so I started looking up treatment centers, you know, and I found one, and I got in, and I remember telling them, I'm not going to do any effing AA or NA. It's like, I'm going to do it my way. And like the counselor just kind of walked me through. And I don't think there is one way to do it. I can't stand up here and say that like the way that I did it is the right way. I know tons of people that have changed their life using church, using community, using voluntary work, using school, using, you know what I mean? But I think the most important thing for me was just finding a community that I could be a part of, finding a community that had strong women in it to teach me how it meant to be a woman, because I didn't have that growing up. I didn't have a mother. I had hung out with thugs my whole life. And so I found a community of people that welcomed me. And it was terrifying. It isn't easy changing your life. Because I remember, I mean, I didn't care. I mean, like, what were you going to do? I didn't care when I was using. You know, I'd been through so much that what's the worst thing that could happen? And honestly, death didn't scare me. It was like, that sounded like a relief. And so all of a sudden I come off of everything, and I was this terrified little girl. I couldn't make eye contact. I'd go to meetings and I'd sit at the back in a hoodie, and I'd find a 6 a.m. and I'd go and I'd show up and I'd make the coffee. And the women there just surrounded me, and they sort of like breathed life back into me, and they taught me what it meant to laugh and to show up for commitments, and how to dress and how to speak above whisper. And it was through them that I learned how to grow up, because I'd never had that before. And I would remember so much humility I had to have. Like, I started off bussing tables at a restaurant. I went in really cocky thinking I was going to get like the bartending job or something like that. And they were like, no, you can clean the tables. Thank you very much. And, I did it because I didn't have any options. I had no money. I had nowhere to go. I was in a treatment facility, and I stayed in that treatment facility for 2.5 years because I didn't trust myself to leave. It was voluntary, and I stayed there for 2.5 years, and I bussed tables for 2.5 years. And I just built myself up, and I did the counseling, right, to deal with some of the things that had happened. And there were a lot of tears, and there was a lot of laughter. And then I started taking classes, and it was just like little by little, all of a sudden my life started getting to a point where I didn't want to tear it down anymore because I loved it. And I'd never loved my life before. I didn't love my life when I was growing up. I didn't love my life when I was using. And because this time, unlike when I had my daughter and it was clean, I wasn't just relying on one person, because before it was her. She was the only person I was relying on. And one person isn't strong enough to contend with my addiction. It takes a whole entire army. And that's what I have now. I have people that I could call day or night and say, like, I'm going through a hard time. And honestly, it's like the hard times aren't about the drugs and the drinking anymore. The hard times are about getting through, like, the loss of not having my daughter in my life. I didn't go to England to go to school. I went to England to try and get my little girl back. And I just happened, like, I was already in school here. I'd started taking college classes and went over there, and I liked calculus. So I was like, well, I'll get a degree in math. Oh my God, like, so hard, dude. And like, these kids, God, they're smart. I'm like old enough to be their mother, and they're like, Erika, let me help you. I'm like, God, this is embarrassing. Talk about more humility, But that's been the constant thing. It's like, whatever's out there is just constantly reminding me, like, be humble, ask for help. Like, you don't have to know it all. And most important thing is being gentle with myself. My daughter talked to me 5 times. She was 16, and she decided that she didn't need me in her life. And she has her own path, and I've got to accept that. And that's so much about what sort of perseverance is about, is acceptance of reality. That these are the consequences of my actions. And it's heartbreaking. It's like, I wish that it could just be easy, I wish that we could all just like love and move forward in life, but there's consequences. And sometimes they're more severe than others. And it's been tough over there. I don't have any family. Like, my grandma died the second year I was there. I was in COVID, locked up in a room because, God, they're paranoid about COVID. Like, it got bad. Like, we weren't allowed out of the house for 2 years, It's like we had an hour out. And then I'm just sitting in my room doing mathematics, thinking about, like how some of the choices I made in my life. But it was the people that I had surrounded myself in. It's like when things got rough, I could pick up the phone and I could call the women that I'd made friends with there. And they pulled me through it. And, I'm back home for the summer, and it's the longest I've been home since making the decision to get clean. And it has been an absolutely beautiful experience. Like, this state has so much to offer, and I'm so proud to say that this is where I'm from. And to be able to spend time with my mom. My mom never got clean. My mom's still an alcoholic. She got off the heroin, but she now takes pills. And I get to be of service to her. And through being of service to her, by being able to show up and take care of her right now, because it is killing her, I'm finding more forgiveness for her. And it's weird how that works, how being of service and forgiving her is it's not so much for her, it's for me. Like, last night I got home and I'm scared about leaving because I don't know if she's going to be here when I get back. And you know what? I just let her hold me, and I haven't had my mom hold me since I was like 7 years old. And like, that is the power of sort of what can happen. I know that people because I'm not religious, but I do believe in something. And it's like, when I let just that love into my heart, the amazing things that come from it are so profound. And it's so worth it. I mean, what else is there in life? I'm seeing how quickly it goes by, and how we usually sometimes only get one shot, Eminem said it. Life's not what does he say? Nintendo game. Yeah. And so now I try and live my life as if might be the only time I get to do things, and it's so much more full of joy and happiness. And so, Louis, thank you so much for asking me, and for you guys for being here, and Wings for Life for what you do.
Awesome. Thank you, Miss Erika. Can we get another round of applause for Miss Dorothy in the kitchen? Thank you, Dorothy. So, couple things. One, next week will be Labor Day, so we will not have a dinner next week. The following Monday, though, we will be having Arthur Malone, and his topic of discussion will be victim services. So that'll be interesting. So if you can make it out on 9/11, that'd be great. The other thing is I have some events coming up. I have a car show coming up September 16th. If anybody wants to volunteer, I have a volunteer sheet. It's good. You can get community service, or if you just want to volunteer, anybody. A couple things. So 9/11 will be Arthur Malone Victim Service. On 9/18, please come down and see Candice Martinez. She was dubbed the cell phone bandit, made international news, and she's going to tell her story after spending 12 years in federal prison. So that would be awesome. So come out and support, and it'll be inspiring. Also, a heads up, we have people on Zoom, the prison, so give a shout out to the prison, and to thank you for coming and zooming in, everybody. I want to give a shout out to Miss Victoria. She's our project manager, and she will be speaking on channel. Let me find the information real quick. On Wednesday at 8 a.m., she will be speaking on KRQE channel 13, and she will be supporting Wings for Life. So if anybody wants to tune in, channel 13 news, 8 a.m. I think it's a morning show or something like that. So just she'll be talking about it. Also, if anybody knows who Jelly Roll is, anybody? Yeah, so he will be endorsing Wings for Life. So very appreciative of that. So does anybody have any questions or anything? No? All right, then. With that said, I thank you guys for coming in. We finished a little bit early, but if you could just please put the chairs on the table, and that's it. I'll see you guys not next week, but the following week. Thank you, guys.